Pilar, you have the next question, and it's for Carly Fiorina.
Yes, thank you very much. Ms. Fiorina, every year 65,000 young men and women graduate from high school in the U.S. and have a hard time furthering their education or even finding a job because they were brought here illegally when they were children. They are undocumented through no fault of their own. Will you have them continue to live in this limbo? Would you send them all back to countries they don't remember, they don't really know? Or would you consider supporting legislation that helps them in the long path to citizenship if they study, if they meet certain goals?
You know, I believe that the 21st century is the century of brain power and innovation, and we need to cultivate all the brain power we can by making sure that people are well educated here. Yes, I would support the DREAM Act because I do not believe that we can punish children who through no fault of their own are here trying to live the American dream. Now let me very quickly say, I do not support amnesty for those who have come here illegally. I believe the federal government must secure the border, and it has not done its job. I believe as well that the federal government has to come up with a guest worker program that works. Senator BOXER has vilified the people of Arizona, even though the federal government isn't doing its job. And at a critical moment in 2007, when a guest worker program was on the table, she was the deciding vote that killed the guest worker program and in essence destroyed a compromise on comprehensive immigration reform. And when she voted for the Dorgan Amendment, which killed that guest worker program, her comment was that immigrants represent a cheap source of labor that threatens the American worker. You see, if you look at Senator BOXER's long track record of 28 years in Washington, D.C., you will see this. She is for more taxes. She is for more spending. She is for more regulation. And she is also for big government and elite extreme environmental groups.
Senator, your reply.
Well, first, I have to say that I'm very proud of my record for veterans, and that's why I am the bipartisan, I'm the co-chair of the Bipartisan Military Families Caucus. And I have a record which won me an award from doctors who were trying to find out better treatments for burn victims. I got the first funding for traumatic brain injury, and my husband served in the military. So I love the military in a very personal way. Now, what I want to say about immigration is this. My opponent called comprehensive immigration reform a distraction. Imagine a distraction. We have 11 million people here who are living in the shadows. And here's where we stand. Under the law, since my opponent feels we shouldn't deal with this issue, they would have to be deported. We just have a recent study from USC and several other very important institutions that said the way to get this economy going again is to go with comprehensive immigration reform. Now, the DREAM Act is
Senator,
part of that.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
The DREAM Act is part of that.
Over the past few weeks, viewers and readers have been sending in questions they would like to hear the candidates answer. And so right now, we're going to shift gears just a little bit and hear a couple of those questions. The first question comes from Tim Tam. Mr. Tam is a Democrat, and he lives in Oakland.
Senator BOXER, you've been staying in the office 3 terms. Why don't you let other people try?
That question was, you've been in office 3 terms, why not give other folks a chance?
I did hear it.
It's first time we've tried it, so.
Well, my answer is every election is a chance. That's what America's about. And you know, I have to say this. Our founders decided to put the power in the hands of the people, and the people have to vote. Now, I have been so fortunate. I'm a first-generation American on my mother's side. My mother never graduated from high school. She had to work to support the family. And I'm in the United States Senate. Why? Because I fight for people, because I fight for the dream. But of course, every time I run, I got a tough fight on my hands, and people are going to decide if they want to have me back, or if they want to elect someone who made her name as a CEO in Hewlett-Packard, laying thousands and thousands of workers off, shipping their jobs overseas, making no sacrifice while she was doing it taking $100 million. I don't think we need those Wall Street values right now. So every race I run in, there's a clear choice. There's a clear choice here on jobs. There's a clear choice on the issue of offshore oil drilling. There's a clear choice on the issue of a woman's right to choose, and many other areas that I think we'll get to tonight.
Ms. Fiorina, your reply?
Well, you know, I think it's a good question, and Senator BOXER is right. Ultimately, the choice is up to voters. But I think one of the things that voters believe is that results count. In her 18 years in the Senate, Senator BOXER has 4 bills with her name on them, 4 pieces of legislation. That is far below the record or even the average. And those 4 bills include naming a river in Virginia, naming a courthouse, renaming a post office, and bringing some federal dollars back to the Bay Area after the earthquake. It is all well and good for Senator BOXER to continue to mischaracterize my record. I would remind her that it was she who voted for the Wall Street bailout. It is she who has taken many contributions from Wall Street executives, and I would remind her as well that when you lead a business, whether it's a 9-person business or 150,000 people, you sometimes have to make the agonizing choice to lose some jobs to save more. And what enrages people in California as they see people making those tough choices absolutely every day, and stores shuttering, is federal government employees growing at 14.5%.
I'm sorry, time is up. Our next viewer question is for Ms. Fiorina, and it comes from a Peninsula Republican, Tom Watson. Mr. Watson is a retired employee from Hewlett-Packard, and he has a question regarding the outsourcing of jobs at HP. Let's listen.
Carly, while you were at HP, you sent thousands of jobs offshore. In defense of your actions, you coined the phrase right shoring. Also, in a keynote speech in 2004, you said, "There is no job that is America's God-given right anymore." Do you still feel that way? What are your plans to create jobs in California?
This is the 21st century. Any job can go anywhere. And what worries me deeply is the jobs we lose now may not come back. And so we have to fight for every job. The truth is that California has higher than average unemployment rate because we are destroying jobs, and others are fighting harder for our jobs. Texas is fighting harder for our jobs. North Carolina is. So is Mexico, Brazil, Guatemala, China, India, Russia, Poland. I know precisely why those jobs go. And I'll tell you why. Because China, for example, like Texas, like Brazil, gives companies huge tax credits. They help them cut through regulation. They reward R&D. They provide access to credit. That's what we need to do. I've proposed a 2-year payroll tax holiday for every small business that will hire an unemployed worker. I've proposed 5-year tax holidays for new businesses that will locate here, to use the power of the federal government to create special economic zones, just as the Chinese have, to help companies cut through regulation. Instead of bailing out General Motors, let us give them the incentives to bring their plants back home and to hire American workers. And let us decide that in this country we are going to be, once again, #1 in innovation. We have fallen to 17th in the world. We have to fight for innovation, and that means we have to be #1 in the world in terms of the incentives we provide for R&D. We can grow our economy again, but it means we have to fight for private sector jobs, and frankly, I don't think there are enough people in Washington who even understand why private sector jobs are created.
Let me ask you a real quick follow-up before we go to the senator, connected to HP. You've in the past said that school teachers should have their pay connected to their performance. School scores down, they should face the consequences. When you were at HP and the board of directors forced you to resign in part because of the stock market dropping with regard to HP, you got a severance of $21 million. So some people might say, gee, shouldn't CEOs have the same standards as school teachers on that regard?
Absolutely, they should. And in fact, during my time at Hewlett-Packard, I ripped up my employment contract and put my pay up for shareholder vote. Every dollar that I earned at Hewlett-Packard was voted on by shareholders, and every dollar was tied very specifically to performance. And just to review, In the 6 years that I managed Hewlett-Packard during the worst technology recession in 25 years, we doubled the size of the company to $88 billion. We tripled the rate of innovation to 11 patents a day. We quintupled the cash flow. We improved the profitability in every product line. And in fact, our stock outperformed the peer index by 23%.
We have to move on. Senator, your reply.
Yes, I think we're entitled to our opinion, but we're not entitled to our facts. The facts are there was a $21 million severance check. And my understanding is it was taken after my opponent was fired. The stock went down more than 50%. So if she's calling for accountability with teachers, there ought to be accountability with CEOs. I think it's really simple. But I think the viewer who asked the question hit on something very important. And I think it is this. If ever we needed a United States Senator from California to fight for American jobs, it's now. My opponent, we know that she shipped jobs overseas, thousands of them. We know she fired workers, tens of thousands of them. But we also know she has opposed every jobs bill that we voted on. The HIRE Act, which gave a tax holiday to business people if they hired an unemployed person, she opposed that. She opposed the teachers, bringing back 16,500 teachers into the classroom. She opposed that. She opposed Wall Street reform.
Sorry, Senator, time is up, but you do get the next question, and it's from Carla Marinucci.
Sorry.
Senator, many of our readers at sfgate.com asked us to ask you this. It regards one of the very often repeated clips on the internet, in which you chided Brigadier General Michael Walsh. He appeared before you in committee. He addressed you as ma'am, and you told him you should be called senator because you've worked hard to get that title. A lot of the readers said that they thought it showed you'd gotten out of touch after 3 terms in Washington, high-handed. Why did you make that comment to the Brigadier General, and is their criticism fair?
Well, people absolutely have a right to criticize me for anything I do. I don't take issue with it. But in that particular moment, we were having a lot of back and forth. This was a formal hearing. So I made the call that I should call the General, and it would be better if he called me by my formal title instead of sir and ma'am, General Senator. That's what it was. Afterwards, I called the General and I said, do I owe you an apology? Did I upset you? He said, no, not at all. And we work very well together. We're working very well together. He's working on Army Corps of Engineer projects right now as we speak. After the BP spill, he's helping us with our flood control in Sacramento. So that's what that was about.
Ms. Fiorina?
Well, I'm certainly pleased to hear that Senator Boxer called the General and asked if she needed to apologize, and I take him at his word if he indicates that he wasn't offended. And I absolutely agree with Senator Boxer that we're not entitled to our own facts. I think it's actually a shame that Barbara Boxer would use Hewlett-Packard, a treasure of California, one of the great companies in the world, whose employees work very hard and whose shareholders have benefited greatly from both my time at CEO and all the hard work of the employees that I had the privilege to lead. I think it's a shame that she would use that company as a political football. I understand she's going to mischaracterize my record and my severance package, but I think it's a shame she would use the company in that way. As for her reference to Wall Street reform, let's just talk about Wall Street reform for a second. You know, the Wall Street crisis hits, and it turns out there are 20 agencies that were asleep at the switch, but what this Wall Street reform bill did, in essence, was say, never mind those 20 agencies, never mind Fannie and Freddie that were part of the problem. What we're going to do is create a brand new agency with a bunch of new federal government bureaucrats.
I'm sorry, time is up. And I've noticed that both of you are kind of drifting off the question to answer something you'd like to answer. I understand it's frustrating for you at times, but if you could answer the questions directly, that would be great. Scott, you have a question for Ms. Fiorina.
Thank you. Ms. Fiorina, you supported Proposition 8 and say that marriage should be only between one man and one woman. Domestic partnerships and civil unions are not recognized by the federal government, and the Defense of Marriage Act means that committed gay and lesbian couples are denied more than 1,000 federal rights that heterosexual couples get, like benefits from Social Security when a spouse dies. So my question is this: should federal law be changed to allow for equal legal status for same-sex couples, and if not, why not?